Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Walk and Talk, the very first episode of 2026, no less. Bloody hell, 2026. Now that it is actually officially 2026, and we are out of 2025, am I allowed to say 2025 was a bit much, wasn't it? It felt definitely a bit much at times for me. I actually had to disengage fully from mainstream media news about halfway through the year because I literally couldn't. Like, it was dragging my energy into the gutters at times. Right, to explain, side note about me, which you probably didn't know, probably didn't want to know, didn't ask. But here I am telling you anyway. Please don't think any less of me, but I'm quite into astrology and all of that kind of stuff. My whole family take the piss out of me, right? But I like to be all over what the planets are doing all the time and what's going on in the skies. And I've been known to literally like plan my business around it fully sometimes. Like if Mercury's going retrograde, you better believe I'm not going to try and fuck around with my website or anything technological during that time. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make about the topic that you absolutely didn't ask for is that at the end of 2024, beginning of 2025, all the astrologers were saying how fucking wild 2025 was going to be, like globally, politically, in all of the big ways. And I have to say, I think it delivered. Anyway, all I actually wanted to say was cheers to 2026, basically. I'm fully here for 2026. Welcome, 2026. I think this is our year, guys. I really, really do. Also, if you are new to this podcast, I'm so sorry. It is not always like this, I promise. My name's Lisa. I'm a dog trainer and behaviour specialist, and usually I talk about dogs, which is what we all came here for, isn't it? So let's do that. Let's just do that. Okay. Today, I thought it would be fun to dive into a topic that I personally find absolutely fascinating. It's one of the biggest question marks in behavior work, and genuinely, I really believe it's one of the most nuanced areas of reactive dog training specifically. And I also think it's something that's really, really difficult, or it can be, to explain or teach or just explore the concept of in just like a 1 minute reel or a quick little TikTok video because it's a bit complicated, right? But I really think if we can do it justice here today and wrap our heads around it in a full podcast episode, it's really, really genuinely going to help you up level any kind of behavior modification work that you are doing with your dog. I genuinely believe that. So, what is it? I hear you ask. Thank you for asking. It's basically this question: when should you let your dog make a choice? And when should you step in and manage the situation so that the wrong choice simply isn't available and the dog doesn't rehearse making a mistake and finding that mistake in any way rewarding? And to just translate that to real life, so it's crystal clear what we're talking about and we're all on the same page from the top, let's say that your dog is reactive. So they bark at other dogs, they bark and lunge when they see another dog. You want them to stop barking and lunging at other dogs. Now, one school of thought says if your dog sees another dog, you need to distract them, disengage them, cue them to look away, move them out of their line of sight, etc., so that they don't bark and they don't rehearse that unwanted behavior. And another school of thought says, let them look at that dog. Don't yank on the lead and tighten it. Give them some time and space to do just a little bit of mental processing about what's going on and let them make the decision for themselves to disengage. Because then you can reward that decision, and that learning is so much more powerful. So basically, do we take control of the situation and manage it into the outcome that we want and then reward that? Or do we put a little faith in the dog that they can come to the right choice themselves and allow them the processing time to do that so that they become adept at independently making better behavioral choices? Now, this is one of those areas that gets oversimplified online. It's possible I'm even guilty of doing it myself. I don't know. But if so, let me atone for my sins here in this episode, because if you followed me or listened to me or worked with me for any amount of time, you already know dog training is actually never as black and white as saying always let them choose or never let them look. The reality is so much more layered. And when we understand the neuroscience behind those choices, we suddenly unlock a whole new level of clarity. And that's what I want us to do today. So, in this episode, we are going to dive into the pros and cons of giving your dog space to make their own decisions, the pros and cons of intervening to prevent an undesired behavior, what each of those approaches actually teaches the brain, and how to know. And I think this one is really important, and you should pop this in your brain bank because it's going to be really useful to you. How to know which one is the right call for your dog in your moment. Okay. And this is hopefully going to be one of those episodes that totally shifts how you see your dog's reactivity, their learning, and honestly, your role in it all as well. So, without further ado, let's walk, let's talk, let's figure this whole shebang out together. Okay. So, first of all, let's explore choice making versus preventing behavior and why this decision even matters, right? Because this is one of the biggest things I wish every reactive dog owner understood. Your dog's brain learns differently depending on whether they complete a behavior or whether they never get the chance to perform that behavior. Okay? Those two pathways produce totally different outcomes in the brain. And I mean, structurally, emotionally, neurologically different. And that's why both strategies have a time and a place. So, first, let's talk about what we mean by letting them choose. So, letting the dog sit in a situation and make the choice to disengage is something you'll sometimes hear trainers call choice based training, voluntary disengagement, looking away. The stimulus pause recovery system. It's all the same principle. And the idea is simple. Your dog sees their trigger. So let's say another dog across the other side of the road. They look, they calmly hold that look. And then instead of exploding, eventually they actively choose to look away. And when they do, you mark and reward. Now, here's what's really happening inside the brain. When your dog chooses to disengage, they're recruiting the prefrontal cortex, the area which is responsible for rational decision making, emotional regulation, inhibitory control. This is the part of the brain we want to strengthen, especially in reactive dogs who spend a lot of time functioning from their amygdala, the emotional reactive part, which I like to call Captain Panic for obvious reasons. So every time your dog looks at a trigger and chooses not to lose control, they're literally strengthening the neural circuitry that allows them to do that again in the future. So, if our dogs are capable of this, it makes sense that we might want to allow this independent decision making to occur, right? It's like going to the gym for self regulation, basically. But here's the important bit, because I know there must be so many of you now literally shouting at me saying, yeah, but my dog will not make that choice. They are reactive. They will see the other dog and they will immediately explode, 100% guaranteed. And that's because this only works when your dog is under threshold enough to actually make that choice. So if they're too close, or if the trigger is too intense, or they've already gone into sympathetic arousal, that fight or flight mobilization, they cannot make the good choice. It's literally no longer available to them. You can stare at the treat pouch as lovingly as you want. The part of the brain involved in that decision has simply gone offline already. So, when choice based disengagement works, it is brilliant. But when the dog is overstimulated, it can actually have entirely the opposite effect and push them towards the behavior that you are trying desperately to avoid. And then this is where we flip to the other side of the coin, which is basically managing the environment so that the dog cannot make the wrong choice. And this opposite approach is what we would call preventative management or control and management. And essentially, this could look like stepping in front of your dog to block their view, or moving both of yourselves behind a parked car, turning and walking the other way really early on, maybe before your dog even spots the trigger, or using a pattern game to keep their focus away from the trigger. Basically, we are controlling the environment so that the dog never gets the opportunity to rehearse the unwanted behavior, the hard stare, the lunging, the barking, the escalating, all of that stuff that makes us instantly just want to fall down a well. Okay. And here's the brain science behind why this is sometimes the best choice. The more a behavior is repeated, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. And this is true for all behaviors, good and bad. So every time your dog has a big explosion, even if you're mortified and apologetic and you're sweating buckets, the dog's brain is simply thinking, oh, okay, yes, this thing that I just did, this is what we do. And I shall do this again next time because this is the thing that I do in this situation. So really, we do have to prevent rehearsal of reactivity. And management tools and strategies do that beautifully. They allow us to protect the learning process, to prevent cortisol spikes, to keep the dog feeling safe, to maintain the trust between you and your dog when you are out together, and to block any unwanted reinforcement of the reactive outburst itself. But here's the thing. Management alone does not ever teach a dog how to cope. It prevents the problem from rearing its ugly head, yes, but it doesn't actually ever teach the dog what to do instead or how to do it. If all we ever do is block their view or turn away, we are basically keeping the dog comfortable, which is good, but we're not helping them develop resilience or the skill set of self-regulation. But again, on the flip side, if all we ever do is allow all of that choice making, we risk putting the dog into situations where they genuinely can't handle it. So here we arrive at the crux of the episode, right? Because the real training and the real skill and the real magic lies in knowing when each approach is appropriate to the situation and being able to select the correct approach for the moment that we find ourselves in at any given time. So, how the hell do we decide? Let's break it down. First of all, number one, we look at the dog in front of us. Some dogs are thinkers, some are feelers, some are slow processors, some fire off like a sparkler the moment they see movement. So a dog who is thoughtful, observant, a little bit curious, they may be absolutely brilliant at choice-based disengagement once they are given the skills. Whereas a dog who just goes from 0 to 100 instantly, like a firecracker, they might need more management early on in their training journey. Neither is better. They just need different approaches. Okay. Number two, we look at the stage of training, and this is huge and really important, right? Early in the journey, when the dog doesn't yet have the emotional or neurological capacity to choose well, in my opinion, management is absolutely everything. You are basically bubble wrapping their brain while you work on building the foundational skills. But as their capacity increases with all of the engagement games, with the reinforcement history that you are building, predictability, safety, calm exposures that are controlled, you can begin to open the door to voluntary disengagement. And eventually, the dog can handle more autonomy, more moments of, you've got this, I'm going to leave it with you. I know you've got this, you can handle it, you can make the choice. And more opportunities to basically practice the skills that you have helped them to build. You could think of it like scaffolding around a building. In the beginning, you need loads of it. In the middle, you slowly remove it from the top. And then at the end, the building is done. It stands independently. It's strong enough to hold its own, right? Your dog's coping skills are exactly the same. Okay, number three, We look at the arousal state in the moment. Now, this is probably the most important one. Your dog's nervous system will ultimately always tell you which approach to go for. If your dog is, they're breathing well, nice and slow, their tail is soft, their eyes are blinking, their body is kind of like loose and goofy, they might be capable of making that beautiful, thoughtful disengagement choice themselves. If, however, your dog's breathing has seemingly stopped and their muscles are locked up, like you can see their rear legs really tense, their pupils are dilated, the tail is high and held really still, that dog cannot really think. They are already hitting survival mode. This is now not a teaching moment. This is a management moment. And when we honor that, we protect their learning. It is not bailing out, despite what you've heard, despite what you've seen online by big, bearded, hairy, scary dog trainers. It's not failing. It's recognizing when actually you need to throw a shield up to make sure all the hard work you've already put in so far doesn't get unraveled. Okay, so let's talk benefits now because both approaches have some really powerful ones. First of all, the benefits of letting the dog choose are that it will build their emotional resilience over time. It strengthens the prefrontal cortex. It will reduce future reactivity as a result, and it helps the dog to understand actually, I can cope with this because we are giving them the opportunity to live that reality and to bank that positive experience for themselves. It also creates a dog who is an active learner, not just a passive follower. It boosts their confidence and autonomy, and it improves long term generalization as well. So it's going to be good for your training all round. It's basically what turns a dog from reactive to regulated over time. However, as we've already explored, it's not always the right choice in every single moment, and management has its own benefits too, including that it prevents rehearsal of reactivity. So it prevents any adverse learning that's going to undo the good learning that you've already put in. It keeps the dog below their stress threshold, which means it reduces cortisol accumulation. It keeps their nervous system functioning from a calm and thoughtful place, which ensures that learning is still possible going forward. It buys us a bit more time to teach the foundation skills. It stops the dog from spiraling into learned helplessness or complete shutdown. And not to be sniffed at, it protects your emotional well-being as well. And that is really, really important, especially for reactive dog owners. You are not a robot, and you deserve strategies that feel doable and accessible to you and safe, and that aren't going to be a long-term threat to your sanity, to be honest. So, having explored both paths in detail, what does the ideal training journey actually look like? Okay, in a perfect world, and by perfect, I mean real, the journey looks something like this. Step one, we manage heavily. So we start by creating predictability and calm. We prevent explosions. We protect the brain. Step two, we start teaching skills away from triggers. So we crack out all the engagement games, the pattern games, movement games, reinforcement strategies, and all of this work builds the dog's capacity to learn and to succeed. Step three, after all of this, we allow tiny, structured moments of choice based disengagement, just a second or two, from a distance, then a reward, then you retreat, no pressure whatsoever. And then step four, over time, those moments just grow naturally. We get longer looks, we get more emotional stability, more autonomy, more trust. And eventually, your dog becomes a partner in their own behavioural change. And this is why I love this work so deeply, because it honours the dog as a learner and it honours you as their guide and their teacher and their trainer. The mistake with this kind of work is believing that you just need to choose one approach forever, because you just don't. Even with the same dog on the same walk, different strategies may be needed minute to minute. If your dog sees a calm Labrador on the other side of the street, at quite a distance, who is completely minding their own business and they're just walking away, looking the other way, choice-based disengagement is probably perfect if your dog is at the stage where they're able to offer that. On the flip side, if your dog suddenly sees an off-lead dog sprinting toward you, or a dog on lead that turns and locks eyes with your dog and then just suddenly barks, maybe they're reactive themselves, no, we're managing the shit out of that situation, because you can and absolutely should switch gears based on what you see in front of you at any given moment. That is the real skill when it comes to good dog training. That is what makes you the expert of your own dog. And I know that so many people can feel like a failure if they're doing really well and their dog's making all these good choices, but then they're suddenly faced with a really intense situation where they have had to step in. But the truth is, you are never failing your dog by stepping in. You are never mollycoddling them. You are never not doing proper training or bailing out. You are protecting their nervous system, their well-being, and all the learning progress that they have already banked so far. And then later, when they are ready, you will absolutely give them the space to try things, to process, to look and look away, and to build resilience. It's not a race. The fastest way to train a dog, I've said this before, I'll say it again, having it engraved on my gravestone. The fastest way to train a dog is slowly. And in this scenario, both approaches are good dog training. Both approaches are ethical and both approaches are compassionate and science backed. The art is just knowing when to use each of them, which hopefully I have helped to clarify with this podcast episode. And if you take any one thing from today's episode, let it be this, right? Reactivity training is not about forcing calm or preventing exposure or feeling. It's basically about building a brain that can recover quickly and easily. And sometimes we teach that recovery by giving space and letting the dog practice it. And sometimes we teach it by stepping in and managing the situation so the dog stays safe and stable enough to learn in the future. Neither is right or wrong, both are valuable and both are essential tools in your toolkit. Your dog is allowed to learn independently. Your dog is allowed also to be supported by you. And you are allowed to use both strategies with confidence and compassion and choose as you see fit. And if you want more information on the foundational skills to teach your dog to help them move past reactivity, how to grow their ability to independently disengage, as well as all the management skills and strategies required to protect their learning as you go along, you can check out my Reactivity Rehabilitation Pack. There's a full 28-day training program in there with all the information and exercises that you need. I will pop a link in the show notes, or you can just go and check it out at listendogtraining.com. I also share lots of training exercises and games completely for free over on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to dip your toe a little bit further into my learning style without committing to a full program or anything like that, I'm at Listen Dog Training on both platforms. You're always welcome to join us over there in the dog obsessed corner of the internet. It's not a cult, or maybe it is. Either way, the more the merrier. But for now, I shall let you crack on with the rest of your dog walk or whatever it is you're up to today. As always, if you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who needs it. Share it on your Instagram stories and tag me, because I love to see what you're up to with your dogs or what you've taken away from each episode. Or you could even do me a solid and leave the podcast a nice little review wherever you happen to be listening. It takes just a few seconds, but it helps me out in such a huge way by making the podcast visible to loads more dog owners in their hour of need. But that's enough from me for now. I shall love you and leave you, and I will see you same time next week for another episode of The Walk and Talk.